Hey guys, I'm Jenna and welcome to this week's weekly recap. This is where I share all sorts of random things, my thoughts, my interests, my discoveries, things that I have been chatting about with people. And then of course, at the end, I will answer a couple of questions from you guys. So it is almost the end of August, which is very hard to believe. And this week I want to talk about when the right time is to start drinking pumpkin coffee, why Paramount Plus is such a dream streaming network for millennials in particular, and then what is going on in retail stores right now because it is wild. So let's just jump right in. So as I mentioned, it's almost the end of August. It's starting to feel a little bit like fall is coming, although not when it comes to weather, at least where I am. It's hot, it's sticky, it's fully still feels like summer. However, at the end of August, obviously we start to see fall things pop up in stores. The clothes in the stores are all fall. We're starting to see fall decor pop up and things start earlier and earlier every single year. And with that, of course, comes the staple of the fall season, the pumpkin spice latte. I'm always really kind of torn about summer ending, but excited about fall starting. So I personally will go grab that pumpkin spice latte the second it's available. Iced, of course, because it is still about 90 degrees outside and 95% humidity. But I'm ready. I'm ready for the pumpkin spice. Also, it tastes good, so why not? So I posted about wanting to get a pumpkin coffee from Dunkin', and the reaction that I got was very mixed. As you can imagine, a lot of people messaged me saying, it's too early, you can't have that. Fall doesn't start until September 21st or whatever. And then there were people that were like, yes, I love pumpkin, like I'm already decorating for fall. So I wanna know what you guys think. Are you team fall starts in August, or do you stick strictly to either weather or the actual calendar dates? I don't start decorating or like burning fall candles or anything like that until we have that first like crisp air, kind of cool temperature day. But as soon as that happens, something switches in my brain, summer's out, fall's in, I'll bust out like the pumpkin candles and all of that. But to me, I don't want to have my apartment smell like nutmeg when it's 90 degrees outside. But the pumpkin coffee, as long as I can get it in an iced format, I'm totally down for. And while we're at it, I just want to say this. My biggest joys in life are like those little things. It's lighting a candle that I love. It's putting on like my favorite cozy sweatshirt. It's getting a coffee that's really delicious, whatever, things like that. So my perspective is like, let me live. If I want to drink a pumpkin coffee when it's 95 degrees outside and that brings me joy, then good for me. So again, to each their own. And if you don't want to have the pumpkin coffee until the end of September or October, I will let you live as well. Moving on from fall and pumpkin coffees, I'm not a huge TV person, as in actual live television person. I think most people are kind of in the same boat where we primarily watch streaming shows now, and I'm definitely one of those people. I really like mini-series. I love documentaries, docu-series, things like that. Netflix, Hulu, HBO Plus has done a ton of them that I've really enjoyed in past years. But I recently have found myself almost exclusively watching Paramount Plus, and here is why. If you are a millennial, Paramount Plus has all of the content from our childhood and adolescence, and it is amazing. We actually got Paramount Plus initially to watch The Offer, which if you haven't seen it, it is a scripted series about the making of The Godfather. It's great. It's really well done. Great acting. Really interesting to watch, especially if you're a fan of The Godfather, but even if you're not, it's just a fascinating story. So we got Paramount Plus because we didn't have it. I mean, how many streaming services can you have these days? But we got it so we could watch The Offer. That was great. And then we were gonna cancel it. And I saw that Are You Afraid of the Dark was on there. I don't think I've talked about this before, but my obsession with Are You Afraid of the Dark in the 90s was next level. I started watching it really early. I mean, I was young when that show started. I think it started in like 93 or something. But anyway, I watched it obsessively and I would tape it like with a VHS tape on the VCR. every Saturday night on Snick, so I would watch the tapes over and over and over and over again. And even now I have a frighteningly accurate memory of all of these Are You Afraid of the Dark episodes. So I saw that Are You Afraid of the Dark was on Paramount Plus, and my husband loves horror. He loves horror movies. It's just kind of like something that he's always loved. So we started watching that together, and we kept Paramount Plus. Then I realized that it not only has Are You Afraid of the Dark, but it really has like all the old Nickelodeon shows, all the stuff that we used to watch as kids, Clarissa Explains It all the old cartoons, Rugrats, stuff like that, and a bunch of old MTV shows. So I have been watching Laguna Beach. I have been watching Daria. I don't think I realized how amazing Daria was because I was too young to get it when it was on, but it is so good, really funny, very witty, very smart, and it was a cartoon on MTV. So anyway, if you're a millennial and you're struggling to find content on TV or streaming that you actually like and you want to revisit some old classics, Paramount Plus. Okay, so speaking of the 90s, I want to talk about what's going on in retail stores right now because this is such a large conversation that I'm seeing on social media, and especially among people my age. I'm 35, millennials and elder millennials especially are triggered and horrified by seeing trend after trend after trend from our youth popping up in retail stores. I don't do a lot of in-store shopping just because of where I live. It's not very convenient to do that, but every time I go to Target, the Wild Fable section like almost knocks me over by how accurate it is and how much it looks like what I wore when I was younger. I actually went to Target last week and I saw they had a Paul Frank sweatshirt. So if you guys don't remember Paul Frank, he was that monkey. Yeah, so that's back at Target. But anyway, this weekend, I walked into an Urban Outfitters. I was confused, a little horrified, intrigued. It honestly looked like a thrift store, like a very well curated, overpriced, nicely put together thrift store in like a trendy neighborhood perhaps, but still a thrift store. Very random kind of assortments of outfits put together. And obviously a lot of throwback styles. I saw a ton of low rise. I saw a ton of graphic tees. A lot of Y2K type styles are still hanging on, kind of like the baby tee graphic tees. And then some really, really 90s styles as well. A lot of super, super wide leg, like almost Jenko style wide leg pants, cargo pants, corduroys. And then I saw an Ed Hardy t-shirt. And what was interesting about the Ed Hardy t-shirt, the Ed Hardy era was really the late 2000s. I remember having an Ed Hardy hat and an Ed Hardy t-shirt in early 2009. So it was really part of that whole Jersey Shore era with Affliction and Tap Out and all of that coming after it. But Ed Hardy was like the gateway between McBling, like the Von Dutch era, and the later like Affliction kind of era. So that was happening in the later 2000s. But the Ed Hardy shirt at Urban Outfitters was on a mannequin with a straight mesh overlay skirt, which screams 1999, and then had a baggy kind of like oversized button-down flannel over it, which is very early to mid 90s. So on that one mannequin, we had Y2K skirt, late 2000s t-shirt, and mid 90s shirt over the top. Trends come back around, trends always cycle, but they're always reinterpreted. The Ed Hardy shirt was cropped, which the silhouette is very 90s Y2K, but the graphic was late 2000s. In the actual late 2000s, the t-shirts were practically down to our knees. They were super, super long, and we wore them over like 13 different tank tops. But this particular Ed Hardy t-shirt, even though it was Ed Hardy, the style of the actual shirt was still fitting into that kind of Y2K, late 90s, early 2000s trend that seems to be pretty dominant right now. Fast fashion has had a big impact on the way that trends cycle. Fast fashion as an industry or as a business model really requires rapid new release items and new release trends and rapidly changing trend cycles for profit, right? They have to keep pumping out new styles that people want to buy. Otherwise, they don't make money because the clothes are really cheap. The whole idea is that you can buy new stuff all the time because it's cheap, but the trends have to keep up with that in order for them to make money. So this makes sense that this is happening, that we're seeing all of these trends kind of thrown at us at once, and that they seem to be cycling really, really quickly now. But I'm really curious to see, when we look over the next couple of years, which ones kind of last a little bit longer and which ones are like fast in and fast out. But if you are a millennial and you have lived through these trends already, and this is the second time you're seeing them come up, I'm really curious to hear how you feel when you walk into stores and it looks like your high school or middle school or college or whatever wardrobe is staring you in the face, because it can be a little jarring to see these things. And some of them look so authentic that I'm almost like, is that the same exact item that I was wearing 20 years ago? My personal opinion, I've said this before, is, I think it's fun. I love it. I think that we're in this era of fashion where there are so many trends happening simultaneously, and trend cycles do move so quickly that there shouldn't be pressure to feel like you have to wear every single trend. There shouldn't be pressure to feel like you have to stay on top of these rapidly changing trends. There are certainly dominant trends, but there are so many different options at any one given time that we do have a little bit more opportunity to pick and choose. So other than that, what's been going on? Well, we had quite an interesting weekend. We went to Connecticut to see family and also to go to a small concert at the local town festival near where my husband's family lives, because the lead singer from Creed was playing. We went on Saturday. It was in the afternoon. I think he went on at like 4 o'clock or something like that. It was so hot, you guys. We were joking that we felt like we were at Woodstock 99. There were so many people, way more than I would have expected, and it was extremely, extremely hot. So of course this was later in the day. The festival had been going on since 10 o'clock in the morning or something like that. And all of the food stands were out of water. We were so, we were melting out there. Beating sun, there was no shade, but it was fun. I can't say that I was ever a big Creed fan, but I was surprised at how many songs they really had. They just, song after song, I recognized them. So I guess it was a little bit more nostalgic than I anticipated. And we are still watching The Sopranos. We've been rewatching that because my husband and I have never really watched the whole series start to finish. We just finished season 2. It's so good. I mean, everybody knows it's so good, but if you haven't revisited that one in a while and you need something to watch, it is definitely worth a second or third watch. And then as always, I'm gonna wrap up by answering a couple of questions. I get these questions from comments, messages, when I do AMAs on Instagram, things like that. So I'm trying to pull questions that are pretty common. So these are 2 very common questions that I often am asked in all those different places. The first one is, what is my all-time favorite movie of the 2000s? Everybody always wants to know my favorite blank of the 2000s, my favorite trend, my favorite band, whatever. But movie seems to come up more than anything else, I would say. I think my answer is probably a little surprising to people. It is just Friends. This movie is so underrated. If you don't know it, it's actually a Christmas movie, I think most would say. Ryan Reynolds and Anna Faris. It is so hilarious. Every single scene has a great quotable line. Definitely one of those movies that flies under the radar because for some reason it's not on TV. Every unknown movie that has any association with a holiday seems to have been picked up and is now just on a repeated loop on TV during that holiday season. This one doesn't seem to have been discovered yet as a cult Christmas movie. So I think a lot of people forget about it, but honestly, it's so hilarious. I could watch it every single day. And number 2, obviously, is Mean Girls, which I'm sure most people would expect to be my number 1 movie of the 2000s, but it is amazing, and of course, I love it. The second question is, do I go thrifting? Do I buy clothes for my videos at thrift stores? I get a lot of questions in general about thrifting. I love thrifting. I actually really love thrifting for my regular wardrobe, probably even more so than for my throwback video wardrobe. The reason for that is because I'm extremely particular about the items that I use in my throwback videos, because I'm trying to recreate very specific outfits or recreate outfits that are really authentic to what I would have worn at that time. So it takes me a lot of digging. But for my regular wardrobe, thrifting is great. It's one of my favorite activities, actually. And I don't often visit the kind of trendy and like very curated thrift stores, although those are much easier because you don't have to dig as much. Those are generally pretty picked over, especially in somewhere like New York City, and expensive. I love going to just like straight up Goodwill, especially one that's like kind of out of the way, you know, not in like a super trendy neighborhood. I have found gems at thrift stores, you guys. I found a Diane von Furstenberg dress for like 30 bucks. I found designer bags. I found a triangle bikini with tags on it. It was brand new for $5. I found Lululemon for like $8. I do thrift sometimes for my videos, but what I really like to do when I'm thrifting for my videos is use either ThredUp, which is an online consignment and thrift website, or go to sources like eBay or Poshmark, because I can look for a more specific item. If I'm looking for something super, super specific, I usually go to eBay, because eBay sellers are very detailed in their descriptions. It's much easier to search for those items. But I do love just going into a thrift store and kind of seeing what I find. Sometimes I'll go into a thrift store just hoping to look for myself, and I will see an item that will spark a memory that will then lead to a video. So that is it for this week's weekly recap. Definitely come back next week where I will be back with more random things. And in the meantime, let me know what your favorite movie of the 2000s is and when you start drinking pumpkin coffee, because this is a very, very hot debate.